This week I got to talk with Alma Katsu about her new horror kind of thriller genre bender, Fiend, which is basically like if Succession had horror elements. So I was excited for this one. Imagine if the Sackler family had a demon at their beck and call. The Berisha family runs one of the largest import-export companies in the world, and they've always been lucky. Their rivals suffer strokes. Inconvenient buildings catch on fire. Earthquakes swallow up manufacturing plants, destroying harmful evidence. Things always seem to work out for the Berishas. They're blessed. At least that is what Zeph, the patriarch, has always told his 3 children, and each of them knows their place in the family. Dardan, as the only male heir, must prepare to take over as keeper of the Berisha secrets. Maris's most powerful contribution, much to her dismay, will be to marry strategically, and Nora's job, as the youngest, is to just stay out of the way. But when things stop going as planned, and the family blessing starts looking more like a curse, the Berishas begin to splinter, each hatching their own secret scheme. They didn't get to be one of the richest families in the world without spilling a little blood, but this time it might be their own. This one is so gothic and also like Succession, like both of those together with some of these horror elements as well. And it was so fun talking to Alma about how she built these characters, how the idea came to her, and how wealthy people can kind of hide in plain sight by being philanthropists through donations. So, that being said, let's hear from Alma. I am so excited to talk with you about Fiend, but I did want to get to know a little bit more about you before we dive into that. So, what was your journey to becoming a writer, or like when did you know you wanted to be a writer? Like, how did that happen for you?
Well, in some ways it was very similar, I think, to what most writers go through. But then, as you're going to hear, it was very weird. I had a very long detour. So, like most writers, right, I was a reader when I was a kid, and I just lived in the library. And I just assumed that I would write stories someday. And I
Yeah.
certainly tried when I was younger. But I ended up going to work for the intelligence community, those 3-letter
The, the
organizations that we all
TLAs,
love
the
so
3-letter
much.
acronyms.
Yeah. And they didn't really like you doing anything on the outside, as we say, even if it had nothing to do with your job. So I had to stop writing. And I mean, I didn't think I would return to it, but I did. When I turned 40, I decided to try writing again. And it took me 10 years to write a book that was saleable. So
Yeah.
I was 50 by the time I sold my first book. That's how it all
Wow.
started.
Wow, that is crazy. And I know, so you write this is obviously horror. You've written historical horror, but also like action thrillers. So was that influenced by your work there? Were you always interested in those kind of stories?
Well, so here's the thing that is also a little like crazy. Most people think, well, why didn't you start by writing spy thrillers?
Right.
Why did that come later? Well, because the book that I, was really driven to write, my first book, which was The Taker, and that's not even horror. That's more fantasy. Back then, paranormal romance was much bigger. And while it's not like a traditional paranormal romance, it sort of fell in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
But that was already dying out. Editors weren't interested in that anymore. So I ended up transitioning. I've always loved like speculative fiction, horror, dark fiction, not necessarily like, the canon, horror canon that other people,
Right.
kind of grew up on. So it was just natural that I would gravitate towards that, I think, as a writer. And I didn't get the chance to write the spy novels until later, after I retired, which was in 2017. My editor at the time at Putnam said, I know you've always wanted to write a spy novel. Why don't you give it a try?
Yeah.
That's how that happened.
Sometimes you need other people to like remind you of like, hey, you wanted to do this.
Well, I did early on when I was that 10-year span when I was working on The Taker. I
Mm-hmm.
did try to write spy novels because, when I met with editors and agents, they would always say, why aren't you doing this? and
Mm-hmm.
they sucked. I mean, they were really bad. And I thought, I just must not have it in me.
Yeah.
But, by that point, I had written 4 books, maybe. Yeah, 4 books. And I thought, I should be able to do this. So I kind of
Yeah.
looked at it more as a craft issue. I should learn to be able to write that too.
Yeah. That's cool. Speaking of crafts, actually, I do always want to know like how people approach their writing. So, do you plot it? Are you a pantser? Are you in the middle? Do you make yourself write every day? How do you finish writing books?
I'm always curious how other authors do it too. Right? We all want tips from each other, make it
Yeah,
easier, make this make sense. I mean, honestly, don't we all say, I have no idea how I wrote that last book and now I have to write another one?
right.
But it is starting to sink in after so many books. I'm definitely a plotter,
Hmm.
especially both the historical horrors and the spy novels are so complex that I have to plot it out. Fiend was sort of a welcome relief in that respect
Yeah, the
because
contemporary part.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
contemporary. I didn't have to, look up a lot of historical details.
yeah.
The story idea came to me all at once. I mean, it
Wow,
just like came out wholly formed. Believe me, it's the weirdest
wow.
thing. I'll probably never get that lucky again. I do try to write every day, or at least edit every day, something. I
Mm,
try to put my hands on words every day. I'm
hmm.
just one of those people. I know not everybody needs to, and isn't that a gift?
Right. Yeah, I it helps me at least with a lot of things to stay in a flow with it and not get out of the routine of it essentially.
Yeah.
Does
I
that
mean,
make
I don't know
sense?
about you. If I don't write for 3 days, by the fourth day I try to get back,
Hmm.
I'm rusty.
Yeah.
It sucks at first. It takes me a couple of days to actually like be able to write again.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so intimidating, like making something out of nothing. I think is like, and so I almost feel like if you're not staying in it, then your brain's like, oh God, what can I even do this?
A lot of muscle memory there, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, totally. Was there anything specifically that draws you to writing, I guess in this case, to writing horror? Is there something that's intriguing to you about horror?
Well, it's a very honest genre in a lot of
Mm.
ways. It's about a feeling. It's not
Hmm.
necessarily about plot or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so in some respects it can be really personal. It's just you are tapping into something inside you. And it's luckily very universal too.
Hmm.
Everybody has fears. Uh,
Yes.
In a lot of ways, yeah. I mean, I find horror really hard to write. Actually, it's
Oh
much
yeah.
easier for me to write a spy novel,
Yeah.
because I don't like cliche in story either. So I want to get to this truthful kernel, right, and to
Yeah.
do it as artistically as I can. So yeah, I mean, I love writing horror. The only thing that irritates me is some readers, have this really cliched idea of what horror is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I
they
was
don't.
just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
I was just I saw Rachel Harrison last night. She was here in Indy and she was kind of talking about that same thing because like even when I recommend her horror, like it's actually very digestible horror. It's not gory horror. And I think that might be even kind of what you're talking about is like sometimes people are thinking of like I can't think of the director who did like the Fall of the House of Usher.
Well, Mike Flanagan.
Mike Flanagan. All I could think of was Mike. um, I think some people think all horror is going to be that, and it doesn't always have to be.
Or even worse, like a Saw film or something. They
Yeah,
think it's just splatterpunk and blood and gore, and it's not.
yeah,
Especially now, it's such a big tent. I mean, there's just so many, and so much of it is so authentic
mm-hmm.
and really, taps into the human experience.
Yes,
It's crazy because, I go to events and there's always at least one person that comes up to me and says, "Oh, I'd read your book, but I don't read horror." And I just want to shake them,
yes,
and yeah, I
it,
mean, first of all, there's a lot of thrillers that could be considered horror. A lot of Riley Sager's stuff um,
totally.
has paranormal in it, for instance, and there's fewer hard and fast lines than people think
I
when
think
it
so
comes
too,
to
especially with horror. I think that, and then sometimes like sometimes speculative fiction too, like what you were talking about. They both can be so many different things. And then I even don't always know what to say is speculative versus sci-fi because there's so much like crossover there too.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole genre conversation is always interesting because you, as a reader, you want it because you do kind of want to be able to know what you're getting into. But like sometimes it's like fun to not know too much about a book, but I understand why it needs to be there.
Right. No, I agree. I agree. And the thing is that I think a lot of times the books that we as readers find most interesting
Hmm.
are the ones that are cross genre or not
Yes.
easily definable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just finished one this week called And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. And that it blew my mind. Like it feels like domestic suspense. It feels like a psychological thriller. It feels like magical realism. Like it had so many
Mm.
things. And it is fun when you blend that together. Um, which I feel like you did do in Fiend. So that is a good segue here. We kind of have like the family saga, definitely intergenerational stuff going on. Um, kind of a corporate thriller, not necessarily corporate, but there's that part to it, and then there's obviously the horror. That for me, some of it which is probably similar in a lot of the horror I love because I love like psychosocial horror is what I've really learned that I really enjoy. So the horror is even a little bit metaphorical in some ways with this story. So you said it kind of came to you all at once, but was there anything that like inspired all of it coming to you?
Well, obviously Succession, which is
Yes.
funny because when Succession first came out, I tried to watch it and I thought I had to stop. I mean, the people were just so unlikable.
So bad.
But so bad. But by the time the last season rolled around and people were raving about it at that point, I thought, well, let me give it another try. And I loved it, watched it.
Yeah.
The writing is phenomenal.
Yeah.
I try to watch TV that has great writing, read books that have great writing. We're always learning from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So afterwards, I thought, wouldn't it be great to do a book that had some of these, same elements in it?
Mm-hmm.
But really, the inspiration for Fiend was kind of the times we're going through culturally as a society, where we just adore the wealthy so much. We just put them on a pedestal, all the TV, all the movies,
Mm-hmm.
reality shows, social media, whether it's true or not, it's just all about acquiring wealth and showing status.
Mm-hmm.
And in this day and age, we see them in front of us and we know they're lying. We
Yes.
know they're cheating. We know they're stealing. And yet people won't point that out.
I know.
And I got to the point where I was wondering, what would it take? Would I need to see like a devil appear in a cloud of smoke next to the person to know that they were
Right.
bad?
Yeah.
And that's where Fiend came from.
That's cool. That's cool. I love that. Yeah, because it was I mean, I think this is definitely it is in the synopsis. Like their rivals kind of disappear. And it was reminding me of House of Cards too, which
Oh,
obviously got a little complicated after the fact with Kevin Spacey. But um how we were all talking about it was similar to the Clintons when we were watching that and how their adversaries sometimes just disappear too. And I was like, oh, this is too relevant.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the more you learn about these sort of evil dynasties, the
Mm-hmm.
more, and that's part of it too. Like we're used to being fed a narrative
Mm-hmm.
and, in real life, and we accept it. We don't
Mm-hmm.
really know what the truth is. But then
Mm-hmm.
when you dig a little bit more, and the Sacklers are a case in point, then we see it's not the story they're trying to tell. They're spinning it to protect themselves. And I think that happens a lot more than, that's why every day there's a new revelation, right? In the news.
Yes.
That's, yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
There's a
yeah.
lot lately, even just
So,
the last 24 hours.
yes. So that was sort of the big idea behind the book.
Yeah.
And I was really hoping that times had changed enough that readers didn't have to have, this likable, sympathetic character that we understood now that, sometimes you're mad and you want to read
Yes.
a book that matches that feeling.
Yes. Yeah, that's always the tricky part about talking about like unlikable versus likable characters is like sometimes the point is that they truly are unlikable, not just like the way women get called unlikable for all kinds of reasons, but like truly, like sometimes you need these stories about very unlikable people because it's like it's what helps us like see the message in the story sometimes.
Yeah, like right now, I think there's a lot of women rage fiction out there
Yes.
and women rage horror for good reason. You
Yes.
know, I sometimes you just want that. You just want to
Uh-huh.
be able to say, I'm not alone in my feeling.
Yeah, totally. Yes. Yeah. That's what I've really been reading more horror in general this year, and that is it's those parts that are like fascinating and intriguing to me about the genre for sure.
Yeah, there's been some really great horror books coming out in the last, I mean, we just had a whole bunch of them come out yesterday.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, going into
today is
fall.
Wednesday, right? Yes. They came out
Yes.
yesterday.
Yes, I know. I was doing the same thing. I thought it was Thursday and I was like for the longest time I was like, "Oh no, it's Wednesday." What?
Sorry, you're freezing up on me there.
Oh, am I moving now? Let's see. Yep, I see my internet is stalling. I don't know if you can hear me yet. Let's see if it'll pick up. Oh, am I moving now?
You're moving slowly, but your voice is good.
Okay. Yeah, our internet has been dipping this week, and it reconnected. So
Okay.
we'll move forward, and hopefully it's okay. Um, so so what's interesting in Fiend as well is you have the two siblings of this kind of generationally maybe cursed, maybe just terrible people family.
They're blessed. They're blessed. They're not
They're
cursed.
so blessed, yes. But Dardan and Maris, is it Maris? That's what I was thinking. Okay. Um, they both react to their family stories very differently and like handle it very differently in adulthood. So was that something you kind of wanted to dig into from the beginning, is like even how differently siblings handle their families?
Well, I really wanted to show, right, the journeys that they went through. Interestingly, though, I didn't add the kind of what you might call flashback chapters that show them as children until later. I mean, it was really important, though, because it helped soften the characters. And you saw them in a more innocent time before what they're doing you could see as evil. And they also had different, paths. Darden, the son, started out as a bratty rich kid. Like he knew right away he was privileged and he took advantage of it. But once he hit the time when he was made the successor, and then that means he gets to share in the family secret, and then the full weight of what he now has inherited and will be responsible for falls on his shoulders. And while I didn't spell it out in the book, that's really the turning point for him and why then he decides to try to be good. Whereas with Maris, it's the opposite. Like a lot of girls, right? We
Huh?
start out wanting to be the good girl. We want our parents' approval. And that's all she wanted. She was a good kid. And it wasn't until as she goes along and she's striving for her father's approval, which she's never going to get. And she can't seem to realize
Yeah.
that, she lets her moral compass sort of go awry.
Yeah, totally. Um, it also kind of brings up the questions of is evil inheritable? Is it kind of systemic? I think we've kind of talked about the system parts. Or I mean, there's also the supernatural in this case, but was there something there you kind of wanted to talk about with how people, make the decisions that they do?
Well, having the kids too was an opportunity to show what I believe, which is, people really aren't born bad, but the circumstances that they're born into, the influence of the people closest to them, their family, I think that can shape them over time. And so, like in this case, you're in a family that, is not morally good.
No.
They're not ethical, and this is, again, a reflection of kind of what we see around us, where if you ask somebody what's good is what's good for them, not necessarily morally good.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do what's good for them because they think that's their right.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, yeah, you have the right to try to defend yourself or protect yourself or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
there's certainly instances where you can make a choice that doesn't hurt other people, maybe doesn't benefit you as much as it could. And we
Yeah.
just see, I think, more and more people going for self enrichment.
Yeah.
So here we have these kids that are growing up in just the lap of privilege and, and luxury and wealth, and they're being groomed from an early age to for their point of view to be what's good for me is what's good. And I mean, I think it must be almost impossible if you are born into that situation to be a good person. And just look at how many rich people out there are terrible morally. Very few, the Disney heir is one of the few I can think of who really seems to be fighting that and really tries to remember that she's a human being.
You mentioned already that you did write kind of like the childhood parts after the fact,
Mhm.
or the flashbacks, and I'm always fascinated by those, 'cause some people will like write things out of order. Um, what, what made you realize well, you said what you needed them to accomplish, but how did you kind of decide like how much of that to include?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because honestly, they are probably like the most engaging parts of the book, those
Hmm.
flashbacks, because it really reveals character in them, what they were, before they learned they had to hide their feelings or, be really deceptive. It's almost like candy. You just want more and more of them. But
Yeah.
I realized it could really overpower the book. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
just like candy will rot your teeth. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So I had to be really careful about what traits they were that I wanted
Hmm.
those instances to reveal. And then figuring out where to put them in was a little tricky too,
Hmm.
especially Nora's, because, we see the least of the youngest daughter, but that's for a reason. So the couple times when we see her flashbacks, they're super revealing about what happened to
Yeah.
her in her life and why she turned out the way she did, which is different from the other two.
Hmm.
So, from a writer's point of view, yeah, the craft part was really interesting. It was a learning
Hmm.
journey, real
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah. The other thing, I kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, is you don't really see like, because there's the very like gothic horror feeling to it. And then what I talked about a little bit earlier, it's also very corporate thriller, and you don't typically get those two together. And I know you were saying like, what if I could just literally tell if someone was evil? Was that kind of what led to blending those genres together?
That's, I don't know if there's just like a little touch of gothic in
Mm,
most of the horror that I write. It does seem
yeah.
to come through. Um, and maybe it's because that I really tried to hide the reality of what was going on. Is
Hmm.
it a demon? Is it not a demon? Is it just a
Right.
convenient excuse? Am I losing my mind? Um, until you're pretty well into the book, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody,
No.
but,
Yeah.
but that's part of the Gothic too, where you think there's something weird going on, and you're being led up to the veil, right? Where on the other side is this unknown world that we
Hmm.
fact but didn't know. So it might just be part of that, or it could be that really nice, creepy old house that they put
Yes.
on the cover.
The cover is so cool. If ever, I mean, surely if anyone is listening, the cover is in the podcast cover art. But if you haven't seen the cover, you need to go look at it. I am obsessed with the cover. It is so
Oh,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
he did a great job.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, was there a certain character that was more fun for you to write, or were they all just like fun to get to create their motivations?
It was almost like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. Like,
Mm,
the parts have to fit and they just fit together so deliciously. It
yeah.
really was a lot of fun. I could have gone on and written any of those characters more and enjoyed
Yeah.
it. At the same time, the pacing was really important. It had to go fast,
Yes.
almost like somebody was dragging you along by the hand so that you couldn't
Yes.
look back and try to figure out too
Yeah.
much what was going on.
Yeah, totally. Um, so oh gosh, I just lost where I was. My whole screen got
I mean,
got changed up.
yeah, I think of it as almost like a craft tour de force. Like I had to
Mm,
bring in, so much of what I'd learned from writing previous books to
hmm.
really try to make this one work. It certainly wasn't cookie cutter for me, at least.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it's even though like we definitely even if you didn't watch Succession, we all know the gist of it. So still like extremely unique, kind of like I was saying, like you don't really get like this kind of gothic horror with corporate thrillers that
Right.
often. So it was fun for me to have that, have both of them together. Um,
Wonderful.
yeah, you you mentioned the Sackler family, and you also mentioned them in your note, but I'm not trying to spoil anything too, but they were a bit of the inspiration as well, is what I'm guessing.
Right. I mean, I saw the show Dope Sick,
Mm-hmm.
and until I saw that, I didn't realize really how bad they were, like how
Yeah.
much they orchestrated a whole opioid epidemic, which put made millions suffer and tens
Yes.
of thousands die,
Yeah.
and yet they were skating, right? This the settlement is still, it hasn't been quite resolved, but if it stands, they're going to get away with no jail time,
Yeah.
and while they're paying some money, they certainly still have plenty of money left
Oh, yeah.
for a family that lied and deceived and killed tens of thousands of people. How
Yes.
is that possible?
Mm-hmm. I know. I mean, yeah, people, the wealth just really lets you do things in America, at least, is what's so frustrating. Like you're saying, they're not even gonna, even financial penalties, it's not the same as like, it's not even in the same stratosphere of like of the effect they had on other people's lives.
Right.
Yeah.
And the lying. It's interesting. And again, it's just part of this weirdness of modern life where
Hmm.
you hear these things, but you don't really put it together, or maybe you don't believe it for some reason. And it
Hmm.
has to sort of slap you in the face for you
Yeah.
to understand the depths of what's really going on. And I
Hmm.
don't know if I just take offense at it so much because I worked in intelligence, and you're always struggling to kind of get to the truth of things. And it just bothers me that so many people
Yes.
don't try to get to the truth of things, right? They're more than happy to pretend the Sacklers were okay. I mean,
Yeah.
even to this day, it's kind of crazy.
I think for some people it feels, I think they can convince themselves that it doesn't affect them enough to care, I guess, is like some of it is what is the vibe I get. Like they're like, well, I can't care about that. I have to take care of myself, which like that's not inherently bad. I get that people do have to, but I think like not to get too political, but I think the like proliferation of fake news, like we all know that there's been spin from families, from people for probably as long as like humans have existed, but in
Right.
this sense, like in the internet age, like yes, sometimes things are spun, but like I think sometimes now it makes people think like, well, you can't believe anything. I'm like, well, we need to be able to believe some things.
Yeah. And it's such a convenient excuse, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's got to be fake news. Mostly just because you don't want to be bothered to be challenged, you know?
I know.
Yeah, it's very sad. But I remember like a long time ago, I was in one of the museums, it might have been the Sackler down in DC, when
Hmm.
a bunch of protesters ran in and
Mm.
started, I can't remember what they did exactly, like throwing things in the air and then lying down like dead bodies.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why they were doing it. This was sort of early in the whole thing.
Mm.
And I remember just thinking, oh, the Sacklers couldn't have done anything that bad. They are philanthropists. They fund museums and
Right.
libraries all around the world. And then later I learned as an analyst, this is called reputation management, where
Hmm.
become a philanthropist in order to sort of whitewash the terrible things you did. And it's so common,
Yeah.
so common.
Yeah, that it's kind of a hiding in plain sight type thing. I always think of, and I can't think of what his name is in Breaking Bad. Um, uh, Esposito is the actor, but he's that same thing where he like seems like this pillar of the community.
Right.
But he is doing terrible things, and that's like a whole other conversation that I'm still trying to figure out too for myself is like I guess like one example, the first one that just came to mind that was difficult for me. We saw the F1 movie in theaters and
Uh,
it was fun, But like also I was sitting there and thinking about like what Brad Pitt's children have said about him. And like they've said that he's abused them. They've all like removed his last name. They've all taken their mom's name and do
Right.
not talk to him. So like at the same time, I was sitting there like, how horrible would it be to like be someone's child and then like the movie promos were everywhere and you're just seeing like all these people basically worshiping this guy and it's
Yeah.
like how do we even keep up with like who does what is the other really difficult part for me sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. But part of what I'm hearing in that whole thing is how easy, and it's just society, how
Hmm.
easy we blame the victim, right? We don't want
Yes.
to say, could Brad Pitt be a bad guy, right? You
Right.
don't think your mind immediately goes to, oh, those kids are just exaggerating, or,
Yeah.
it's whatever, it's fake news.
Right.
And it's always so hard for the victim to be
Yeah.
heard. Yeah.
Yeah, most people in these, like especially children, you don't want to not like your parents. Like it's not something you like wake up one day and you're like, it would be fun if I just went no contact with my parents. Like no one's trying to do that, but
Right.
there's so much that's like, oh, it's this generation is dramatic or all of those things.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, it's just difficult.
Yeah. And this is part of the lesson of Fiend in
Mm-hmm.
that it's so obvious, right? These
Mm-hmm.
parents are abusers. They manipulate their children. They
Mm-hmm.
think they're doing it for the right things because the
Yeah.
family's culture is that, we keep the secret and we make money and we stay in power and we do
Mm-hmm.
it however we need to. And if you're part of this family, you will do it too.
Yeah.
And so the kids are just groomed into it. I don't think they ever
Yes.
know that there's an alternative.
Yeah.
And Dardan realizes it towards the end, and look where it gets him.
Hmm.
So,
It's not fun being the one to like see reality clearly sometimes.
not in this case. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really fun, it sounds terrible, but it was a fun story to write because there was just so much I want to try to fit in there. But it was
Hmm.
like a Jenga tower, like
Yeah.
things couldn't be revealed too soon. And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you're kind of the layers that it's like kind of generational for the family. Like there it's like how much do you show? How much does the reader need to know? And like when do they need to know it? I
yeah.
would imagine it's complicated to keep it all together.
This was easy compared to some of my other books, I gotta
Oh
say,
yeah.
because it was so much more direct, right? It didn't
True.
have like a ton of subplots and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that
But
makes
still,
sense.
I'm happy with the way it turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. It basically, if you love horror, everyone's hearing me on here talk about my obsession with like psychosocial horror. If you're loving that, if you love Succession, I think you will love this. So everyone needs to go read it. Um, I do always ask at the end if you've read anything recently that you've liked, or I know sometimes people are, if they're rating, they don't, but I do always ask.
Well, I have to read a lot. I mean, on one hand, I love to read things um that I'm going to learn something from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something about the writing, the way the writer handled a particular issue, that sort of thing. And
Hmm.
and I get asked to blurb a lot, so I'm always
Oh
reading.
yeah.
Well, one thing is it's an anthology that I was in that just came out a little while ago. It came out in August. It's The End of the World as We Know It, which
Okay.
is the anthology that's based on the world of Stephen King's novel, The Stand. It was
Okay.
like for the 45th anniversary.
Oh,
So
that's
they got
cool.
30 some odd of us, not all horror writers. We had some thriller writers too, like Sean Cosby.
Oh, he's
And
fantastic.
he's fantastic. We had amazing writers for this. And
Yeah.
so it's real. I mean, it's been sort of a historical thing. It was an instant New York Times bestseller and it's made bestseller lists around the world.
Yeah.
But, and Stephen King wrote the introduction for it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It really is a good read. If you like The Stand,
Hmm.
if you love The Stand, if you like The Stand, you really should read this anthology. If you haven't
Hmm.
heard of it, go out and find it.
Yeah.
Really, some of the stories in it are just a tour de force.
Yeah. I've been wanting to read more short stories just because. I'm having a hiccup attack.
Should I
Because
scare you? Please.
yes, please do. Uh, yeah, I'm just fascinated by it. It like the pacing and the structure, like it's so different. So I've been interested in them more. So now I know what I'm gonna go request on Libby when when we wrap up.
Well, I agree. I started out, I was never really a short story writer. When I went to
Mhm.
grad school, of course, you write some short stories, but I
Yeah.
always thought of myself as a novelist because that's where the contracts were. But once I got
Hmm.
into horror, there's much more opportunities because anthologies are really just built into the fabric of the horror community.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been writing more and reading more and really enjoying it. Like you said, it's just a completely different way to do storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of, I mean, there's always symbolism in horror, but I feel like there's so much like symbolism and stuff happening too in like the shorter stories to kind of like get the vibes going even.
Yes, yeah. It's almost like a shorthand way to like move the story along.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Well, I'm definitely gonna be reading that one. I'm excited to just hear all the different stuff there. Where can people follow you to stay up to date with everything?
Well, probably the best way is to subscribe to my Substack
Mm,
because social media, the algorithms, it's all messed up. The only
yeah.
reliable way to follow me is by subscribing to my newsletter. So just go to Substack, look for Alma Katsu.
Uh-huh.
There it'll be.
Okay.
You appreciate it.
Yes, I love that. I will put that link in the show notes as
Oh,
well
wonderful.
as for the end of the world as we know it as well, if anyone else wants to read that. But thank you so much for talking with me about Fiend.
Thank you for having me. This has been tons of fun.
Same.